And just as I promised, we have Congressman Ron Paul on the line with us. And we have him for enough time to ask pertinent questions about what's going on here today. If you have a question for the Congressman, 1-866-95-PATRIOT, or just send me an email. All right, so let me get right to it because time is short here, and I know Congressman Paul is in heavy demand here today. Hello, Ron. How are you?
Doing fine. Nice to be with you again.
And it is again. This is number 6 for you and I together.
Well, I didn't know there were that many.
It's been a fast 2 years. Let me start off by congratulating you on becoming mainstream. Did you ever think that was going to happen?
No, it sort of scares me. What's happening? Yeah, I wonder, am I selling out or are we making progress? I hope it's the latter.
No. Well, you haven't sold out. They still call you Dr. No, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, let me ask you, if you would explain to the listeners and the people that are going to watch this on some of your message forums and what have you, explain, just give a progress report on the Investigate the Fed bill. I believe it's number H.R. 1207. Do I have that right?
That's right.
Where does that stand now? I know you have 300 and some co-sponsors. Is it going to come to a full vote, and when do you think that will happen?
Well, we've had one key vote, and that was in the Financial Services Committee. We have 317 co-sponsors, which is rather remarkable. It's 3/4 of the Congress. Even with that vote, there was never any intention by the leadership to allow it to come to the floor and just have an up or down vote. But Barney Frank, chairman of the Financial Service Committee, always expressed some sympathy, although not enthusiastic, and he did not get on the bill, but he did not keep me from bringing it up and offering it as an amendment to a financial reform package, which is, as a matter of fact, going to be debated on the House floor today.
Okay.
And that bill doesn't have probably anything in it other than my amendment that I would support. But the amendment came up. I had 15 members of the Banking Committee support it. We won it rather easily. You got 43 to 26, which was a major victory. So a very good piece of legislation is placed on a very bad piece of legislation. It will be brought to the House floor, and it probably will get passed. But there's still tremendous resistance to this. I mean, the closer we get to bringing it about, the harder the establishment comes down on us. Everything from the Federal Reserve buying ads in movie theaters and hiring a lobbyist, and Bernanke writing major editorials. I mean, they are on the defensive. The American people now, I think the last poll showed that 80% of the American people think it's a good idea to audit the Fed. So we have a lot of momentum with this, and I think it had to do with a lot of talk shows like yours and others that have talked about it and got the people knowledgeable about it.
Now, isn't that you were talking about whether or not you sold out or not, but isn't that a sign of progress that the Federal Reserve is now the subject of kitchen table conversations, water cooler conversations?
I think that's the best part of all this. And we don't know what the final outcome will be because I'm sure even if we do get it passed, there'll be lawsuits and resistance and destructions of paper. I understand the Fed's already been involved in eliminating some of the records. So that is very, very important. But the biggest issue is the American people are looking at something very, very important. That is the nature of money in the Federal Reserve, and not thinking the Federal Reserve always takes care of us, but maybe the Federal Reserve has caused a lot of mischief, and maybe they're up to no good. Maybe they do exactly as we have argued, and that is they create the bubbles and they create the recessions, and they bring a lot of harm and hardship and our inflation, and also they're involved in taking care of their friends. I don't think they can reverse that. I think that information is out. I expect our economic crisis to get worse. I think we're going to have a dollar crisis. And I think the most important thing that we have done is direct the attention to the most important factor on why we're in such a mess.
Okay, Congressman Ron Paul was with us. I have a question that I want to ask you about a former colleague of yours, Gary North. You know Gary, right?
Gary, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, Gary North has been writing some really interesting and provocative stuff lately. Yesterday, he had a piece out, and I think he worked for you back in the 1970s. He had a piece out yesterday where he said, Congressman, he said that Social Security will go bust next year. that
Yeah,
they're using fake, phony accounting methods to say that it's not bust, but he showed the statistics that it's going to be bust next year. Your comments on that?
Shocked. I am shocked. Of course, it's insolvent. Of course, he also made a pun about that all. He says it's for the third time in his lifetime that it's gone bust.
Right.
And they always come up with a rescue package, more taxes and cuts in benefits, and something will come up. Yeah, it will be insolvent. I believe his numbers are right, and he did a thorough study of this. But, it's not to build fear into the people who receive checks from Social Security. Those checks will always come, so they will do something, even if they have to just print more money, which they will. But the biggest problem is how this puts more pressure on the dollar, and eventually these checks that people get from the government won't buy anything, and that's where the real crisis will come. But Gary did a very good article on that, and he explains it in great detail. I don't question his numbers, but technically it looks like the Social Security system would have to be going to the Treasury, which the Treasury would tide them over. But it also will put more pressure on Obama and others to do what they always do, and that is either run up more deficit or print more money.
And they seem to be really adept and have no fear of doing so, the way I see it.
No, I mean they live in outer space. I mean, when they just think of what kind of expenditures are involved in expanding the war in the Middle East.
Right.
At the same time, on the very same day, they'll talk about a $1 trillion medical care program. And the other day there was a vote in the Senate, and they said, well, we don't think you should finance by taking $500 billion out of Social Security. Now, there's a government system that probably should have never been brought into existence, but, people are, using it, and they're depending on it, on the Medicare, and yet they're going to take the money out of Medicare in order to say that it won't cost anything to run this new program that they're designing. They do this with a straight face. And but I think the American people are becoming, more aware and are much more cynical and know what's happening more so than before. It was always just trust. Today, I don't think they trust the system, but they're always hoping and praying that they can get a little bit more from the government before the whole thing comes down.
And that may be what's driving a lot of this. Wait a minute now. You promised me this, Obama, and I haven't gotten my check in the mail, and I've been waiting by the mailbox. Let me move on to something else here because time is short.